Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to One Civil Law. So I just wanted to provide some thoughts relating to the ongoing issues in LA relating to riots that are underway in that city related to immigration and other issues. So my thoughts on this are severalfold. First of all, I'm a rule of law guy. I like rule of law. I want the law to be followed by everybody, the government, people, protesters, everyone. So first and foremost, of course, I value the First Amendment. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, the very fact you disagree with me is the thing that gives you the First Amendment protection in the first place. You don't need the First Amendment to agree with me, because if you agree with me, why would you need to be protected, right? So the First Amendment really only has value to the extent you disagree with me, or anyone else for that matter, or the government more appropriately, right? The whole point of the First Amendment is to have speech that is unpopular, unwelcomed, and not particularly if the person that's viewing it is the government. So, you can have any view on immigration, ICE, any other issue that you want. And you should have your ability to speak your mind in a peaceful way, lawfully assemble and lawfully protest. I have no problem with this. If you're pro-immigration, anti-immigration, pro-ICE, anti-ICE, you think we should have more immigrants, fewer immigrants, you think we should open our borders, you think we should close them, whatever your policies are on anything. It doesn't even have to be immigration related. It could be anything. It could be protesting anything. I don't care. Drug policy, environmental policy, whatever, right? And that's the whole point. The First Amendment, you can have any view and express any view you want peacefully. And you have the right to assemble in a peaceful way in public. The right of assembly is well protected, in addition to your freedom of speech. And so you have a right to congregate in a peaceful manner. That's fine. Now, that can be regulated by the government as to time, place, manner, to deal with the nature of it. And depending on the size of it, maybe there's some permitting things that are necessary. But, all things being equal, you should have the right to protest anything you want, because the whole point of the First Amendment is to give you that right. Now, that right to protest, of course, at the risk of stating the obvious, does not give you the ability to set cars on fire, does not give you the ability to block traffic, to go onto the interstate and inhibit flow of traffic, does not give you the ability to throw cars or bricks at cars or at car windows, does not give you the ability to assault people, does not give you the right to try to break into or force your way into a government facility, to an ICE facility. It doesn't give you the right to try to stop, hamper, impede a governmental officer from the lawful exercise of their job, right? So that the ICE officer is going about their business, you don't have the right to interfere with that, prevent them, delay them, hinder them. You don't have to support them. You don't have to encourage them. You don't have to assist them, but you can't hamper them, impede them, right? You can't block them. That's pretty standard stuff. I mean, it's not that complicated, I don't think, in a lot of ways. And so, there's that. And, my view on this is that the government has basically the ability to use as much power as is necessary to restore order. That is in the nature of our system. The government uses power to get what it wants. It's the legitimate exercise of governmental power. That power doesn't necessarily have to be violent. That power can be something as simple as a fine, just don't park here, or, we'll fine you $20, right? That's power, right? So power is not necessarily violence, and violence isn't necessarily inherently legitimate, but the government has the ability to use as much power as is necessary to restore the order, including violence if necessary, including the military if necessary, because at that point you're just arguing. I mean, the ultimate extreme of that is we're in a war, either with a foreign power or we're in a civil war. And of course, either way, the government has the ability to use such power, right? If we're in a full-blown civil war, then obviously the government has the power to use the military to bring down the civil war, right? So that's the ultimate extreme of that. And, everywhere in between, there is the ability to use power. So they have the power. They have the power to use as much power as is necessary. If they use more than is necessary, that might be itself illegitimate, right? If the government uses more power than is required, then it might be undue, unlawful use of force. It might be undue restraint. It might be a lot of things. But if it is required, if it is necessary, is almost by definition legitimate, if not by definition legitimate. And so, to the extent that the federal government is looking to use the National Guard, for example, to prevent the ongoing situation in LA, I think that that's perfectly warranted. With respect to, for example, invoking the Insurrection Act, I'm not going to take a position at this time with respect to that in LA. I will take a notice with respect to Chaz Chop from a couple years back. I thought that was Insurrection Act worthy, right? And I mean, because at that point, how is that not just an insurrection? Like, you literally have a group of people who at that point had segmented off part of the city. They set up borders with checkpoints and signs like, now entering Chaz Chop, now entering the United States. Like, they had border checkpoints with signs, right? They had segmented it off, kicked out the authority, said, we are the authority, had borders and patrols and all the rest of it. Now, it wasn't exactly good. It wasn't exactly like they were competent, but that was an insurrection. Doesn't necessarily have to be competent to be an insurrection. So just because they weren't, particularly well resourced, and just because they weren't particularly well armed, doesn't mean that they weren't an insurrection. So for me, I thought that Chaz Chop qualified as an insurrection. I thought the Trump administration would have been warranted in invoking the Insurrection Act to send in forces, including potentially military forces, to clear out the zone, because they were in a state of, I don't know how much more clear you can be that you're in a state of active rebellion. We are the Chaz Chop. We have set out borders and patrol. This is not the United States with the border checkpoint. I'm not sure how much clearer you can make it that you're in active rebellion against the United States at that point. But, I kind of felt you were there. So whether or not we're there in LA or not, I'll defer to another time. I don't really necessarily think we're there today, but we might be getting there depending on how things develop into the future. And at least for the moment, if they want to send in the National Guard to quiet the rebellion, or quiet the streets and bring back civil order, then I think that's perfectly legitimate. Not to say, of course, that they couldn't go too far in some instances. So it is possible, of course, that government officials could do things that are illegitimate in the broader exercise of that. So it isn't necessarily to say anything they do or any action they take is necessarily legitimate. They could take actions that are illegitimate, but in the grand scheme, they would be legitimate because it would be necessary to bring the order back. So all those good things. And apparently the Pentagon's looking at deploying Marines to Los Angeles. So, okay, fair enough, So, okay, this is the ultimate, this is just F around and find out taken to a whole new level. There are people there that are fucking around. They are committing arson, violence. They're throwing bricks at people, aggravated assaults, attempted murder in some situations, probably. Interference with government. Yeah, the government has the ability to quell the disruption. And so, my view is if it's necessary, then it's legitimate. And whether or not the Marines are necessary in this situation, I don't know if they're necessary or not, but I'll defer that to another situation as we deal with it one step at a time. So all that good stuff. So yeah. Can I deeper in it, Posse comitatus? Sure. Let's take a look at it. Let's see. It's always good to go back to your original sources, right? Okay, yeah. So, yeah. So, yeah, because it was amended in 2022, which is why I wanted to check it. Civil unrest for Trump created an emergency. Well, be that as it may, and Trump is, be that as it may, it is what it is. I'm never going to be able to find this on the fly in the long text of this thing. This is going to be impossible. Hold on. $1992 for O.J. Simpson. No, well, let's see, because it was, what was it in 92 with respect to Simpson? It was, 92. That was before Simpson. Okay, hold on. Did I go to Clemson? I did. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, I thought they amended it. All right, that's why I like to check these things. Yeah, they amended it in 2002 with respect to Posse comitatus. All right, so here's the current version of the Posse comitatus Act, 18 U.S.C. 1385. This was amended in 2022, in case anyone was curious. Whoever, except in cases under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or by an act of Congress, willfully uses any part of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, or Space Force as Posse comitatus or otherwise to execute the laws of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. So yeah, you can't use the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, or Space Force to do police actions unless otherwise authorized by some other act of Congress. For example, the Insurrection Act. So because the Posse comitatus Act says unless it's authorized by an act of Congress. And of course, the Insurrection Act is itself an act of Congress. So there you go, right? So you can't use, you will note, by the way, that the Coast Guard is not included in this list because the Coast Guard does do police action in terms of law enforcement action. And so the Coast Guard is not and has never been included in this list. So that's very interesting. Rodney King, thank you. Rodney King, yeah, that's right. Fair enough. I appreciate that. Wasn't OJ, it was Rodney King. You're right. Where it has been invoked last. So yes, that's right. So all that good stuff. Read the Paul O'Keefe judgment. I'm unaware of what judgment you're referring to. Nothing in my staff chat. I have no idea about that. What else? It was also done in Hawaii in relatively recent memory for some reason, where I believe it was, something like that was done in Hawaii as recently as well. But yeah. I missed a super chat. Let's check. $5 from Pin King 554. Riots aren't covered under the First Amendment. I'm well aware. Thanks. Seeing morons complain about the National Guard being there. If they were actually people, they wouldn't be there. Fair enough. Title 10, Section 12406 U.S. Code states the governor has to be on board with federalizing the National Guard. There is no way that's what it says. But we can look it up. There is no way that is an accurate summary of what it says. But let's take a look. All right, let's see. National Guard and Federal Service. Whenever the United States or any Commonwealth of positions invaded or in danger of by a foreign nation, there is rebellion by danger of rebellion against the authority of government, or the presence unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. The President may call into Federal Service members and units of the National Guard of any state such numbers as he considers necessary to repeal the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws. Orders for those purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states, or in the case of the District of Columbia, through the commanding general of the National Guard of the District of Columbia. So the orders are supposed to be issued through the governor, but they're called in national service. I'm sure there's some other clause beyond that too. People are waving the flags of another country on U.S. soil. Can't that be viewed as an act of war? No, not inherently, no. Waving the flag of any country is speech. Without more, no, absolutely not. That's dumb. If you believe waving the U.S. flag is speech, which I assume you do, I assume you say that there's a message, then waving the flag of another country is also speech. That's absolutely retarded. No. Waving the flag of another country while burning a city? Who's burning the city? The person waving the flag? If so, then that, I don't know, are they acting on behalf of the government of that nation? An act of war would have to be done by that nation. It would have to be the nation themselves doing it for it to be an act of war. So unless you think that those people are acting on behalf of the nation state, like with their direction, then by definition, no. It can't be an act of war unless it's being done by a nation state. So no, that's retarded. It's a civil offense to be in the U.S. undocumented? No, it's illegal. It's a crime. It's a crime to be here illegally. It's a crime. It's a crime to cross the borders illegally. It's a crime to overstay your visa. It's a crime. It's criminal. Do I care to go through Newsom's letter to Hegseth for consent? I don't have a copy of it, but whatever he's saying on the issue. Yes, you can burn the U.S. flag in freedom of speech. The case was, I know the case. What is the case? Don't tell me. Flag burning is protected by... It was a Texas guy too, wasn't it? Who did it? What's it called? I can't remember. What else? Mexico president just called to say they were going to mobilize. If Mexico mobilizes within the United States, then yes, that would be an act of war by definition. If the Mexican government sends forces into the United States, then yes, that would be an act of war by definition. Correct. If they're going to mobilize on their side of the border, no. They can mobilize on their side of the border. That's fine. If they mobilize on our side of the border, that's a war. Letter is linked in the CBS article. I don't know anything about that. Texas v. Johnson. I want to say it was Johnson. It just didn't sound right in my head. Johnson was the name I came up with. I'm just like, that wasn't right. I should have just said what I thought it was. Yeah, I was like, I thought it was Johnson. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So then I didn't say it because I wanted to sound stupid. And that is just the case, isn't it? It's just called Johnson. Fuck me. I should have just said what I was thinking. Shit. The president of Mexico literally threatened to mobilize. Mobilize where? Mobilize where? California sues Trump administration for deploying the National Guard. It isn't the first time the president has deployed the National Guard against the wishes of a governor. Deep South would like to have a word with you on that issue, for example. So she was not specific. Okay. Well, if they mobilize in Mexico, it's not a problem. If they mobilize in the United States, it's a big problem. Yeah, the Insurrection Act says whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combination, or assemblage or rebellion against the authority of the United States makes impractical to enforce the laws of the United States in any state by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state and use such armed forces he considers necessary to enforce those laws to suppress the rebellion. So that seems pretty clear to me. If we're under attack by a foreign power, could we not mobilize here? Of course we could. What are you talking about? If we were under attack by a foreign power, of course we could mobilize inside the United States. What kind of question is that? What are you even asking me? I don't see the letter in the CBS article, so I can't comment on that. Sorry. Anything else? All right. Well, seeing as there's nothing else at this time, $5 for Economath. Likely troops were used for security support to free up other civilian law enforcement to do their thing. Quite possibly. $5 from Kiwi, New York Upstate. Troops should declare a food shortage and convert migrants into nutritious bisques due to a national emergency. Okay, that's exciting. They could mobilize and we could counter mobilize. Yeah, I mean, if there were Mexican troops that were assembling on the border, the U.S. would have every right to put troops on the border to prevent an invasion of the United States. And if they crossed the line, they could start shooting at them. That's how wars get started sometimes. I'm pretty confident in the U.S.'s ability to win that war. So I don't think I'd try it if I was Mexico, because I think we're going to win that one. Pretty sure. Yeah. I'm sure there will be legal fights over it. I have no doubt in my mind. Why do so many people believe illegal entry or overstaying visas is not a crime? I don't know. People are dumb, I guess. I don't know. Why can't people seem to distinguish between a protest versus a riot and illegal immigrant versus immigrant? I don't know. Furthermore, I don't know. They're dumb. It's not that hard, I don't think. They're planning standouts on June 14th all over the country. Okay. Well, whatever, I guess. I mean, May the Mexicans regard their actions as reconquering lost territory. Well, that was lost quite a long time ago, and I don't think you're getting it back. So, yeah, I wouldn't try that. I'm pretty sure we will win that war very rapidly. Don't be in cities on the 14th. Well, don't break the law. Can we give California back to Mexico? What does legitimize legal rights to a territory? What legitimizes legal rights to a territory? From an international law perspective? Well, you can always go to the Montenegro Convention. Like, what makes a country a country? What makes a country is a border with a permanent population and the ability to protect those borders. So what legitimizes is the power to keep it. That's what makes it legitimate. And I guess recognition by other countries. So there's that too. Abstract history really doesn't apply to these current times? Sure it does. History is always informative. It's been said before that that history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And it's like, yeah, history is very relevant to understanding things. What else can we talk about? Anything? You mean me to read through the U.S. code? All right. Well, seeing as there's nothing else, I guess I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So I've enjoyed our short stream together. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Until I see you tomorrow, I've been on Civil Law. Hope you have a good one, my friends. For later, cheers and goodbye.